Oh guys, here we are. I'm cleaning up my 6170R. We're going to start putting her back together. It's really important on these motors, on all these engines. I mean, counterbores, cleaning the counterbores up. I take a pick and I get down in the corner of the liner bore here, clean the carbon out, and then I'll take a flat blade screwdriver or something flat and scrape the carbon off the sidewall of the liner bore, the counter bore, and then just set there. I like to get them just about spotless. I don't want anything affecting my protrusion, you know, on my liner. I want it to be perfect, you know, so there's nothing as far as carbon up underneath the liner flange when it goes in, making the protrusion stick out too much, because it doesn't take much to adversely affect it. So this is just one of those things I'm really particular about, is getting this liner board just perfectly clean. Just take you some memory cloth so it's just shined up in there and there's no carbon in there. I'll take a pick or a screwdriver and go back over it and make sure that I don't see any other carbon flaking on there. So, and then the 6170R, the 6068 motor, I was looking it up, and they don't have an actual protrusion measurement. So when you actually put the liner in, that's what I'm talking about. I'll show you. You know, usually I've got a protrusion gauge that's got a flat deck on it, and then a little step on it where the dial indicator sticks through it, and you just slide it along the flat part of your deck, and then it'll hit that little bit of a liner flange there. And you know, once you zero it here on the flat part of the deck and then hit the protruded part of the liner, it'll give you the thousandths measurement, whatever the spec may be. Usually they're around, you know, anywhere from 1 to 4 thousandths, 6 thousandths, somewhere in there. You want a little bit of protrusion because that fire ring on that head gasket is going to sit right here, and that's what seals that fire ring, is that liner. You know, a lot of guys will look at their block, and Cummins, the old three-headed Cummins were kind of notorious. The heads would kind of walk on there, they do, and they would wear on that block and wear uneven spots. But that's not, it's nice to have a nice flat deck, but the most important thing is the counterbore. That's the most important thing on the Cummins. I mean, I've seen some pretty bad ones, man, that I've seen some that we've had that in some truck engines that were so worn out that, I mean, what needed to be done is the deck needed to be milled and flattened out again. But we were having heads leaking, and these guys were in a big hurry and didn't want to mill the deck, and about once a year we were fixing head gaskets and just replacing them because they'd start leaking oil, because this part of the deck was uneven. But we weren't having fire ring problems. You know, the fire ring wasn't leaking back towards the coolant side of the, you know, once they start leaking across the coolant side, or the fire ring going back into the one of your coolant ports, that's when you start getting, you know, coolant. What'll happen is they'll start pushing water, or they'll start getting hot on you, preheating on you, because that combustion gas is hot and it's going back in your coolant loop and preheating your water. So, you know, we didn't have any problems as far as that. We just had leaking heads, and they were too cheap to fix them right. So. But anyway, kind of got off there a little bit, but that's just one of the things you'll see. Common problem. These one-piece heads are they're not near as bad for doing that as them three-piece heads were. The three-piece heads seem like they like to wear on that block pretty good. But now I'll get these counterbores clean. Now on this engine here, I was looking it up last night. They don't give you a protrusion measurement. They want you to take a depth mic. They want you to measure the counterbore, and then they want you to take the new liner flange and measure it. Okay, and then they want you to take that piston and run it up the top bed center. And once your liner is in there, and you've got you're supposed to take a couple bolts, strap it down, hold it down tight, and then you're supposed to measure that piston at top dead center. You know, you're supposed to zero it on the flat deck, then you're supposed to measure the piston at top dead center to make it sure the piston's not coming up too high to make contacts with the valve. So that's kind of weird that they would be having problems like that. So, but I'll keep cleaning on this, and be putting liners in here. I'm gonna put the lifters in. I got new lifters. I don't know what I had my kid cleaning this up the other day. I'm trying to find one of them lifters that was bad. I mean, that one there ain't so good. It's pitted out. This is what happens with an EGR system, guys. When you're putting all that carbon back in your oil, you're sitting up your oil, and it just eats everything. It just eats everything in it. So it's just not good for them. Alrighty, well, I'll keep cleaning on her. Well, we're putting a little semi-lube on the flat part of our tappet lift, or the flat part of the cam follower here. A little bit around the bore. Probably could just dunk it. You can dunk it in clean engine oil too, but I usually just kind of do one at a time. Keep from having to set it back down with the assembly lube on it, full of, you know, got it sitting on a piece of cardboard here, but it ain't going to be perfectly clean, so I like to just stick the assembly lube on there and then stick them right in there. Alright guys, so we got a depth mic here, and let me see if I can get this over here where you can see that. Okay, you're going to start out here at 0. You guys haven't, I'm sure there's plenty of guys watching this that know how to read a micrometer of any sort, but for those of you that don't, let's show you what this micrometer goes in increments of 25 thousandths. So, you know, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So you want to 0 it. There's our 0. Okay. And you want to set your flat edge here. And we're going to just run that down so that just touches. There we are. There's our measurement. So we're past the 2. We're past the 200 thousandths. The 50 and the 75 thousandths mark showing. So obviously we're going to be at 225 plus the measurement on the dial here, plus 10. So we're at 225 plus 10, 235. And our spec is 234. Your spec is 2343 to 2357. So we're right at 235. So we're in spec. Let's go through and measure the other ones. Now with this one here seems to be quite a ways off. 235. Let's check this one here now. Just now touching right there. Alright, it's 235. I don't know what I was reading there for a second. About 236. And right there, it's about halfway in between. That's what I keep getting, is halfway between the 10 and 11, which the high side of the spec. I mean, I'm not going to worry about 1,000th, I'll tell you that right now. 2357, so we're there. We're at yeah, 25, 35, we'd be at 236, right pretty close to 236. It's halfway in between there, so yeah, 0.2357, 0.2343. That one's winding up on the 10 mark. So I found out, you know, what, put some firm pressure right here on that. It's hard to tell if you just use light pressure because it wants to lift it off, but you can feel it here if you put firm pressure on this. You can feel it in here on the dial. See, I'm feeling it right there at 10. Well, that's the way to do that. Right there at 10. Now you can feel it in the dial and you know exactly. That one's about 10 right there too. So they're pretty well dead on. So the next thing we got to do is find our liner flange. Okay. So measure liner flange counterbore depth and block compared to specification given below. If depth is not within specification, liner shims are available. And that's one of the things you got to really pay attention to when you're doing one of these diesel engines. If you take this thing to a machine shop, you better make damn sure that the machine shop's measuring stuff right. Because if they cut this deck, that affects your counterbore. They have to cut the counterbores too. You know, if they take 10 thousandths off to flatten the deck, they gotta cut 10 thousandths into that counterbore too, to make sure that protrusion stays right. I'm not shitting you, I seen a machine shop do that one time. They cut the deck because, we don't work on diesels too much. Well, it was obvious because they didn't cut the counterbore, and the protrusion was way too much because now we don't have as much material here on the top of the deck, and our liner's sticking out more because they didn't cut the counterbore to match the meat they took off the top. So you really got to pay attention to that stuff. It's critical. Okay, sonar liner flange thickness, 0.2371 to 0.2385. I've got an outside mic right there. Let's get another thing on these 6170Rs I was reading, and you want to make sure that all these are the same part number, because I guess they had different kits, and we got different boxes, so I'm not really real keen on that right now. RE543854, and then I've got some kind of, I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be on there. Hopefully they didn't get me all screwed up here, I hope. Get me mismatched liner kits, piston kits, you know. I would not put it past you. I wanted to show you guys this right here. There are different manufacturers' part numbers for pistons and liner sets. These are not interchangeable. Do not intermix piston liner sets on the same engine. Check parts catalog for correct applications. Okay, just want to make sure you knew that. Check your part numbers. Guys, liner O-rings. Okay, so this particular engine, when we took it apart, it had a black on the bottom, it had a red on the top, and then the square packing was up against the liner, and I'll show you that in a second. So you're either going to have a black on the top O-ring groove, or not a black, you're either going to have a red or a white O-ring. These new cylinder kits all came with white O-rings, so don't be alarmed if you know, well shit, that O-ring's white and the other one it was red. So the bottom groove could be black, or the top groove can be either red or white. So I've got this slickened up here with some Vaseline. Another thing you want to make sure is, you know, this engine has such low hours, they were pretty clean. On a higher houred engine, you really got to clean your O-ring grooves out and make sure that stuff's spotless down there. I'm just gonna get her worked in there. It doesn't kink on you like that when you're moving it around. And make sure you're actually in the groove too. Alright. We'll slick them here on this. Two hands. being a little bit tricky with me. Kind of a little bit a pain there. About normal though. Alright, square packing. Square packing. Get it lubed up. You can use soapy water too, but trying to remember what soap I want. Don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Let's look in here. Consumables, soap lubricant. Okay, black O-ring. Okay, do not use oil or hand cleaner soap on O-rings. Petroleum products will cause a red or white O-ring to swell, which may result in O-ring damage during liner installation. Pour AR 54749 soap lubricant into a suitable container. Okay, they've got some special soap they want you to use on there, but Vaseline is petroleum jelly. It will not cause the liner O-rings to swell. Now you kind of gotta, don't let that roll on you, the square packing. And what I'll do too, take a little bit of this. This is where your O-rings are going to seat up right here. They'll go in a little tight. Gotta get, it says right in here, and I'll show you that too, liner installation. Somebody, oh, you used a hammer on that? Well, here you go. I'll show you a picture of it right in John Deere Service Advisor. He's got a block of 2x4 and a hammer, and he's knocking it in there. So I gotta go find me a block of wood and a hammer and tap it in there. Most of the time you can just, I only weigh 130 pounds, so I ain't got enough lead in my ass. Look at here. Look at that nice 2x4 they provided with us right there. Can actually get up underneath the engine. Look, see, make sure you didn't roll one out. You'll see it sticking out the bottom of the liner. This one looks good. And then what I'll do, I like to keep the piston that came with that liner. I'll set it right there, that way I don't lose track of what's going on. Let's do another one real quick. And then I'll just slam the other ones out. We've already measured all our counterbores. Let's measure our liner flange again. Pop our piston out. Like our oil control ring, the spring came out of it. Let's get that situated before we lose the damn thing or something. go out and put the wiring harness on a 6430 today. Still got to do that. Oh, come on. Butterfingers. Having a hell of a time here. Here we go. Let's get our mic and measure. Measure our liner flange. We've already measured all our counterbores. At the wrong side of the mic, that's why. Why is that reading all funky? Looking at the wrong side there, ding dong. Yeah, 220 by 213. So we're good there. Same measurement as the other one. That's the vernier side of it. I forgot about that. You can actually read. You can go like that. So right there, we're reading 225 plus 13. You can turn this side over to add the next, what is that? Tens, hundreds. Where's the zero mark? There's a zero right there. I forget how that works, to be honest with you. We're good to go there. Same old song and dance. Get your liner O-rings. Probably just go ahead and stick your square one on here. I don't know, I've always used this Vaseline on here and I've never had any problems. It's cheap, readily available, and you don't have to worry about swelling up your O-rings at all with it. Wet liner engines are so much better than the damn dry linered motors. God, I hate those things. Like those Perkins old 354s. I used to rebuild a whole lot of them. I don't do see too many of them. They're finally starting to die out around here. I used to rebuild a bunch of those, and them damn dry liners, God, I hated them. I used to weld a bead, take a bead, welder, stick welder, weld a bead all the way around the inside of the liner and shrink them out and then pull them out. I had a puller that I made, and it had 1/2-inch grade 8 bolts, and it was breaking them off, pulling them liners without welding them. And then that's when I started welding them. family gutter in there. That top one's a real asshole. Yeah, it ain't really, it don't really cooperate a whole lot. There I go, my damn. Okay, block of wood and a hammer. Alright guys, well you get the gist of it. So we'll go through there and do the same thing to all these holes and put her together. And then the next thing we'll be doing is putting pistons and rods in it. Alright guys, so I wanted to go over something. I've had some questions before on some other engines I've done on this YouTube channel. I've read multiple different things about ring end gaps. Okay, here's the biggest thing. Okay, so when you there's no real, I could say, one right way and wrong way to do it. I mean, I've read some cat service manuals that tells you not to put your ring gap over the wrist pin hole, to clock it there and then clock the next one 120 degrees, and then the oil control ring another 120 degrees from that. I've read that. And then I've read other service manuals that tell you that doesn't matter. And I don't think it does, because if things are right in the cylinder and the tolerances are right in that cylinder between your crown of your piston and your rings in the, you know, in the liner, those rings turn in that liner anyway. The most vital important thing is to gap the rings 120 degrees apart when you start doing this thing. If you prefer 90, I've done them 90 degrees apart, you know, just to make it simple. But this particular engine here, it tells you to take the top compression ring. So there's going to be a front on the piston. See the arrow? And then it'll say front right here. So if you look at the service manual, it tells you to put the top compression ring, it wants it just like that, facing the front of the engine, right in line with the wrist pin hole. Okay? And you'll notice one thing you need to check on these, okay, and get my flashlight out so you can see what I'm talking about, since the rings are already on these pistons. See that one dot? That's got to face up. Okay, on your top ring, you'll see that your second compression ring has 2 dots on it. Those need to face up. So what you'd want to do is they tell you to take this one here like this. Okay, so here's our 90-degree mark. They want you to go 120 degrees, so which is, you know, around in there. It don't have to be exact. And then take the oil control ring. The other thing on your oil control ring, see the little white? See the yellow mark there on the end of the actual outer part of the oil control ring? See the white mark on the spring inside? See, you want that white mark in the middle there. You don't want where the spring spreads and comes apart on the other side. You want it 180. You want it 180 degrees out from where the other one was. And I'm all screwed up. I'm not 90 degrees. Not 90. I told you wrong. 90 degrees. I'm all screwed up with my degrees. So you can go like, you know, where's our top ring at? So there's top ring. I said 90, but I meant 180. So there's 90 degrees. Take your second one, they want you to go 120. So that's obviously 180. So you can put it about, you know, somewhere around in there, like that. And then the bottom one, from where this one's at, the oil control ring gap. The oil control ring gap doesn't have any dots. It's symmetrical. So you can put it about right around 120 degrees from this one. And then all your gaps nothing's lined up anywhere. You know, I've had some Perkins pistons that had 5, that had, I'm trying to remember. Oh man, they had 4 or 5 rings on them. I think they had 4. I think they had 3 compression rings and 1 oil control ring. So that's just more gapping you got to do. But I thought I'd go over that. It's not really that important where it's placed, the gap at. I mean, as far as wrist pin hole, the most important part is getting them gapped from one another consecutively. You know, that way you don't get any compression gas. It'll go past that gap, and you'll get blow-by is what'll happen. And another thing to note when you're doing this, just think of it. I mean, if everything's right in that cylinder, those rings will be turning. They're not going to stay in the same spot, but they should turn uniformly. That way the gaps don't line up. Okay, thought I'd go over that. Okay guys, got all my rods cleaned up. John Deere on this, they don't even have a kit for this engine. They have to piece it together. So I initially, when I took all this stuff apart, I measured my wrist pins and they're all fine. So I said, we'll just reuse these wrist pins. Most kits you get, they come with piston packs that come with wrist pins. They're not these cheap sons of guns. But so anyways, make sure you clean your small end out. Inspect your rod. This thing hasn't got any hours on it. I mean, these rod bushings look brand new. I mean, they really look good. So what I'd like to start doing is we're going to match our, here's number 1. Go ahead and stick a snap ring in one end of the piston here. And this is where you really got to pay attention to make the snap ring coming out of a wrist pin, out of the piston, that will hang you, just hang you, just detrimental. Got to get this thing started in here. Man, I would really like it to start. There we go. There we go. They're a little stiff. So where's front at? Front. is over here. So make sure that the front on the rod is facing the same direction. A lot of them, when you pull these things out, you know, I'll see which side my numbers on my caps, if they have any. A lot of these newer engines are not even numbering the caps anymore. They just put alpha numbers so the caps match up. They don't put like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on them like they used to. This one actually has the caps numbered 1 through 6. But when I take them apart, I'll make sure which, because some of them won't have front marked on the rod and the piston like this. So need to make sure what side, you know, the rod, what side those numbers, did they come off the cam side on the cap or the non-cam side? So that's another thing you need to pay attention to when you're pulling them apart. This one here's pretty easy because they're all marked, so that's actually nice. Golly, see that stuff? I'm gonna have to get some brake clean and clean these pistons off after putting these wrist pins in. That slimy shit's everywhere, and it's all the lint off the rags. I need to get some lint-free rags. I got some over there. I'm gonna have to get them, clean them pistons up real good before I go together with them. I gotta go get some. The nursery that this engine belongs to is right next door. I'm gonna get my service truck over there and get the get some motor oil from them to dunk my pistons in, and then I gotta go look at that. I gotta go put that oil cooler on that 60 series Detroit. I broke a damn fitting the other day. The oil pressure feed line comes out the back side of the cooler and feeds the turbo, and that thing had been on there for 100 years it seems like, because it would not come loose, and I was backing it up with another wrench and it was hard to get to. Well, it ended up breaking the fitting off in the cooler. Trying to get the bastard out of there. What am I doing? Putting the cart before the horse here. But yeah, it wasn't my best moment. Yeah. We'll have most of this engine put together today. If I can get left alone. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that, I guess. I gotta go put that wiring harness in the 6430. Hopefully I don't run into a disaster there. There's about 4 different options for wiring harnesses on that 6430 Premium, and hopefully I got the right one. Sliding right in there. Well, that first one was a real pain, wasn't it? Front and front. Okay, I gotta go get the phone now. Well guys, we're heading out to a 6430. Put an engine wiring harness in it. As you can tell, we got some snow. Earlier on I was working on the 6170R, and then a cowboy from the AZ ranch came over, and the Ford tractor they were loading their hay with to feed their cows. He said for some reason the lever's stuck. It won't let the bucket go down, the forks go down on it. So I went over there. It's old 56, actually a real clean old 5610 Ford tractor. I mean, it was a clean old tractor. Man, it just turned off cold too. I mean, you Usually I'm pretty acclimatized to the cold weather, doesn't bother me, but the problem is that we've had warm and cold, and you just get to where you're not used to it. And that, you know, we had warm weather a week ago, now it's snowing and it's cold, and it's like, it's just going from like summer to winter, and you're just not ready for it. And anyway, my damn hands were getting cold, and I ended up pulling the spool out of the control valve for it, and on the end down there, it's got that cap on the end where the D10 is. It's got a float for going down, for letting the forks down, or the loader down, you know, so where you can just shove it forward and it'll go into detent and it'll just go down and you can let go of the lever. Well, what had happened is all that big cap there where the D10 is, all that had gotten full of dirt, and then that dirt just froze hard as a rock when it got cold. We had like 8 degrees this morning, and ended up pulling that cap off the end and chiseling that crap out of there, and finally got it all cleaned up and got the detention springs all back in there and put it all back together. And Cowboy, they'd roaded that tractor all the way down here from clear up by Monument, Oregon, and he goes, that's never worked on there since I've been here. I said, what's never worked? The down? He goes, oh no, it'd go down, but that float, he said, that's never worked on there before. And I said, well, it works now. I said, hell, that thing's probably been full of dirt for 20 years, who knows? You know, and I don't know. But this tractor here we're going out to, I actually worked on it here about 2 weeks ago. The wiring on there where T's going to the pump speed sensor and the crank sensor and all that stuff. There's like a little plastic T in that wire loom there, and right where that plastic T is, all the wires right there, just vibration, I guess, just rubbed the insulation. They were all touching each other and had a bunch of erroneous signals to crank sensor and pump speed sensor, and so we cut them all. And I basically looked at the old guy there and I says, I got a feeling we're going to be putting as a wiring harness in this thing before too long. And well, it lasted a couple weeks, and he called me, what was it, Thursday? Yeah, he called me Friday. Called me Friday. Said that it quit him again, and it started and it stopped, and he said, just order a harness. Go. I said, how big a hurry? He says, just get it as fast as you can get it. We need it for feeding. And so I next dayed it. And then, of course, to be honest with you, I called him. I says, I've got the harness on Saturday. I'm tied up doing something else. And I didn't get done with it till Saturday evening. And then Sunday, I just made it a rule of mine. Sunday's the day that I'm spending with my family, and that's the day I'm going to take off. You know? And to be honest with you, I've been going so dadgun hard lately that, man, my hands, I'll do that. I'll get to working so hard, so long, these 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I'll do that for months on end, and then I'll get to where my hands will just kind of start locking up on me. You know, they just get sore, they just need a rest, you know, and I did. I took Sunday off, and I'm just fine now. But I called him Sunday and told him, I said, you know, my hands are hurting. And he goes, oh, hell no, as long as you get out there Monday or something, get it going, that'll make us more than happy. And I said, okay. Most of these guys are pretty darn easy going, you know, about this stuff. Every once in a while, you'll get into a guy that, like my grandmother used to always say, some people would whine if they were hung with a golden rope. And some people are like that. It doesn't matter what you can do. You can do the whole job for free and do it perfect for them, and they find something to whine about. But there's just, I don't hardly ever in this area run into somebody like that. I know most of the people around here, but it's like if I get one of these highway truckers, which I hardly ever do any of them highway truckers anymore, you get one like that every once in a while that's like that. It's a long ways out here. It's about 17 miles, I think, from the shop. Get out here. And if it's, I don't know what it is about being out here on the other side of the mountain pass here, but if you're, must be a little higher or something, I don't know. It always seems like it's colder, you know. And then it's kind of in a valley here. And usually when you get out there, the wind is blowing, it just seems like it's just colder than it normally is. Today we just got Daisy riding with us. It was President's Day, so my daughter, that white dog, that's Duke, that's my daughter's dog, so the kids were at home today, so Duke got to stay at home with his girl, and he doesn't mind that a bit. He loves his girl. And Daisy, Daisy always has to go with me. I tried to get her to stay home today, and she didn't want to stay home. She was ready to go. Yeah, I'll get back this afternoon there, and we'll get back to working on that 6170R again. See if we can, let's see, I got to get the pistons in it. I got them all set up on my rods. And I see it's snowing out here. I've got them set up on my rods, orientated right. I just got to get some motor oil and dunk them in some motor oil and install them in the engine, and then we've got to measure the clearance up on top. I've never had to do that before on a diesel engine, measure the clearance when the piston's at top dead center. It must be a really, really close fit between their valves and their pistons on these engines if they're worried about that. Because this is the first one of Tier 4 6060 motors that I've done. So, rebuilt a lot of engines, and every one, you know, it seems like every one you get into they've got a little bit different way they want you to do them or something. You notice my service truck's running a lot better? Yeah, I put an injector in it the other day and fixed my fuel leak. My pressure regulator on my fuel filter housing was blowing fuel everywhere. I mean, it was getting bad enough where it was getting the rear end wet. You know what? I'm thinking it might be right there. What tractor? No, that's a 6415 right there. Pretty sure that's a 6415. I fixed a bad oil leak on it. Oh, they lost it. I worked on it the other day. They lost a tire off the feeder or something, bearing or something. Yeah, they lost it. Must have had a flat tire because the hub's still on it. Yeah, that one the other day had a bad oil leak on the filter housing. Well, here we are trying to get this wonderful wiring harness out of here. And it's like trying to stick a square peg through a round hole, I'm telling you. They ain't no fun getting them out of there. And it's cold and it's miserable. And oh, listen to me whine. I try to do these old harnesses where I can save a lot of the plugins and stuff. You never know when you can use stuff like that. Let's see here. Give ourselves a little bit of slack, maybe. Man, it's so wrapped up in there so tight. Let's see if we can get a bar or something to flex that harness. out of the way. I had to unhook this one and hook the old 4455 up. Good old dependable, reliable tractor. Instead of one of these new electronic piles of shit. Seems to always be broke down. Gee whiz. Oh, you miserable son of a gun, you. This ought to be fun, huh? All right. That was a painful process. All right, and this wire loom here, where's it going? I think that's running all that stuff up under there, which that's another. So this thing had a ton of crank sensor and cam or pump speed sensor codes and all that stuff. We got rid of all those by changing our wiring harness. We know that was bad, but it's got another problem too. I've got it to where it started. They couldn't even get it started before. Watch this. There's your barrel pressure relief valve. Deere just changed that over there before I started working on it. So you're gonna have fuel coming out here. Your return line goes into that. So when that rail relief valve lifts, all your, it's gonna overcome that return pressure and go back into the return back to the tank. So you're gonna have fuel coming out this line. This is kind of a mess doing it this way, but it's the way it is. You should not have any fuel coming out this rail. I'll show you. Here's at an idle. See the fuel coming out of it? It's junk. The rail relief valve is bad already. Brand new rail relief valve, and it's already fucked up. Alright, I'm gonna pull that out of there and head back to the shop. Alright guys, so I already got number 1 and number 6 in. I like to do companion cylinders, it's just the easiest way. So easy way to remember companion cylinders on any inline 6. Every one you add together equals 7. So 1 and 6 is 7, 2 and 5 is 7, 3 and 4 is 7. What a companion cylinder is that say number 1's on top dead center compression, number 6 is on top dead center exhaust. The pistons are going in the same direction, but they're on a different stroke. Okay, so what I want to do here, tell you what you need to check when you're putting one of these in, especially on this engine. So put your new bearing in, roll it into your rod end, and then stagger your ring gaps. And on this particular engine, they want one facing directly into the top compression ring, facing the front. You'll see a dot on the top that goes to top. Okay, so then the other one's supposed to be 120 degrees. I mean, this doesn't have to be exact, but right around in here on the other side of the wrist pin. And then the oil control ring has got a white gap, because where this spring separates is on that 180 degrees. You want the spring inside the oil control ring where it actually spreads on the other side of it, 180 out. And that white mark there on the center there is basically the identifying mark to tell you where you're at. So after you get all that done, make sure your snap rings are in your grooves real good, and then pour some clean engine oil over it. And hopefully when you put it in, you don't break a ring. I've done a lot of engines, and I probably broke, I don't know, 3 or 4 rings over my I don't know, sometimes you're just not paying attention like you should. It happens. So this piston also front on the piston, front on the rod. And you'll see a relief cut in the skirt of the piston. That's where your piston coolant nozzle goes. And what number this should be? Number 5. Mark number 5 right on the rod. Make sure you don't drop it or let it slip, because if it slips and hits that oil control ring, it'll break it sure as hell. I guarantee you that, because I've done it. I had one on a big Cam 400 slip on me one time and had so much oil on it I couldn't get a hold of it. You can kind of see this little arrow here, and that'll kind of help you square that up in the bore. And remember, these rod cap bolts, they're not reusable either. Usually, if they don't go fairly easy, then there's something wrong. Get my flashlight so I can see just a little better here. Something's kind of not acting right here. This ring compressor says bottom. I've got that bottom. Alright, there it is. It doesn't take a lot of force, so don't really start whacking on it hard. I know I've got a lot of viewers out there that are pretty experienced mechanics, and they know what I'm talking about. Okay, what I like to do, I like to get underneath the engine and pull the rod and the piston down onto the journal. That way I don't just shove it down and then that journal swinging, or the rod swinging like this, and then gouge the crank. I need to roll my just like so. And these clean here. I've cleaned this thing about 4 times. I just can't stand these lint on these rags. It always seems like it's really dirty, and it's not really that dirty. But that lint, I hate that stuff. There, that looks pretty good there. Yep, these are torque to yield rod bolts, so you want to go 43 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees on these. What did I do with the, oh. Here's my new rod bolts. I didn't put any assembly lube on this rod cap yet. The thing I can say about this Lucas assembly lube, it's pretty thick stuff, and in the cold weather it ain't so great. It don't come out of the bottle very good. So that says number 5, and the 5 is going to match up with the rod cap on the other side, which is going to be on the cam side of the motor, towards the piston coolant nozzles on that side of the block. There's several methods. There's a couple of methods. I've got a torque angle gauge. I usually use that torque angle gauge if I've got one, like, say for instance on the International I did the other day. On the International, it had a 4-step sequence that I called Tim there, Tim Stanford, in New Mexico, and he's all over the truck thing usually. I usually got most of the torque specs and everything for these tractors, but not for the trucks, so I called him and asked him what the torque sequence for the head and rocker shaft torque, hold down torque, so high pressure oil rail torques, all that good stuff, and he emailed me all that stuff. And anyway, that had a 4-step torque sequence to it, and I think the first step was, I'm trying to remember, you started in the middle, worked your way in a circle at 150 foot-pounds, and then you went on the intake side of the motor and you went straight in a straight line down the intake side of the motor and then worked your way across at 150 foot-pounds. And then the third step was I'm trying to remember now. Third step was 90 degrees in a straight line, the same sequence as B, torque sequence B, 90 degrees, and then the third sequence was another 30 degrees. So when I get one like that, I'll use that, you know, like a 30 degree turn, I'll use that torque angle gauge. Instead of making all the marks like they wanted me to, I just use my torque angle gauge. But 90 degrees is pretty easy to figure out. You know, you can either put your wrench in the center axis line of your crankshaft and just turn it 90 degrees. Or what I do is I'll take a mark right here on the edge of the cap, or I'll mark the bolt right here since I'm going clockwise. Right here, the very, you know, make a mark right in the center of the cap down the bolt head, and then I'll make a mark right here 90 degrees on the cap, and I'll line my 2 marks up. And there's your 90 degrees. So, alright guys, I'm gonna torque this to 90 and then I'm gonna go home. But that's it for today. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and if you don't, I guess give me a thumbs down. Alright, thanks guys.